If you watched the first video we did on the Cyelee Chameleon green dot optic, you'll see that it seems like I struggled a little bit zeroing the optic, and I did. I'm going to admit I did struggle, and I don't know why. I don't know if it was just me being off that day, a little bit of the optic. I don't know, but I did notice, and we talked about it in that video, that as I was making elevation only adjustments, because this thing was shooting low, like a foot low at 15 yards, as I made elevation only adjustments, trying to bring the shots up, the dot drifted. And the dot, visibly looking through the optic, I noticed as we were going, the dot drifted over to the right, off from the front sight post. As looking through the sights, I noticed the dot was moving. Had not made any windage changes. Okay, so that's an issue we're going to kind of talk about. We're going to address it, and we're going to see if this will happen again. One observation, I wanted to talk to you kind of my thoughts on the optic after shooting it the first time, taking it out and zeroing it. When I was out doing that video, I was using the case, the rim of a 9mm spent shell, and was using it to make the adjustment. So that does fit in the adjustment slots, which I think is a pretty nice feature. A casing is not a precision tool, right? But when you're making those adjustments, when I was out there, I could not hear any audible clicks, and I could not feel anything. It just felt like you're just turning. On this optic, there are no gradients, there are no markings to keep track of, your movement on the screw. Is that a deal breaker? I don't know. It would be nice, Cyelee, if maybe you could put a mark on the screw and then put hash marks all the way around that kind of coincide with your 1 MOA click adjustment. That the box and the literature says it has a 1 MOA click adjustment. Okay, now did they lie about that? The click. Let's address the click adjustment part. When I came inside, controlled environment, eliminated as much sound, ambient noise as I could, I took a little screwdriver, and when I made the adjustments, if I really pay attention, I can feel a very slight click. And if you really listen closely, you can hear it. Let me see. This might be annoying to you. I'm going to take the microphone. I'm going to put it right up here against. And I'm going to try to make an adjustment. And let's see if you can hear it. Okay. If you really listen close with your ear, you can barely hear it. You can barely feel it. So there are clicks in there. Being that they're you can't hardly hear them and you barely can feel them, makes me wonder how durable that is to actually hold zero. Which brings up my next talking point. When I mentioned that we were going to do this review a little differently, I'm still not going to totally reveal. You're going to see it here in a minute. These observations kind of fall into that because we're going to explore this and maybe exploit it. I'm not sure. We'll see how that turns out. So this actually worked out pretty good. This observation goes right along with the plans I had, not knowing this was going to be a factor. Now, one other thing I want to clear up from the shooting video on the initial review, I want to show you that on the left side, there is a plus button, and then on the right side, there is the negative button. All right. I didn't make that clear in the first video. I kind of just showed you, hey, there's plus up and down. There's one on each side. So, of course, your plus button will increase the intensity. The negative button will decrease it. Now, if you hold both of them together and look at your dot, you'll see it blink once. When it blinks, what that does is you've now locked out both buttons. So now if you have it in your holster, you're not going to bump anything inadvertently and change your brightness. It's a nice feature. If you hold them back together, press them both together, you'll see it blink twice, and then that feature is now off. You can go back to making your adjustments. If you leave the optic on, set it down, walk away from it, after no movement, 5 minutes or so, the optic goes to sleep, powers the dot down, and as soon as you barely touch it, pick it up, the optic comes back on to your last setting. Now, if you, and that will repeat. If you put it down, walk away, it'll go back to sleep, and you wake it up by touch to pick it up again. Now, if you shut the optic off, if you take the minus button, hold it down until it powers off, you have now essentially put it's not asleep, it's turned off, okay? So if you pick this up, now you have to push it. You have to hit the plus button to turn it on. The thing I guess I kind of like with this is all it takes is just one press, a quick press, and it's on. You don't have to hold it and wait for it. So I wanted to clear that up. I wanted to talk about that. So after you watched me struggle zeroing this, what we're going to do today is, which I guess makes total sense, right? Let's power this down. I'm going to take it off the pistol after we zeroed it. Makes sense, right? Well, this is going to lead into what I talked about when I said we are going to do this review. It's going to be a little different than the others. So now we have that off of there. The screws are out. That's a T10 for the screws for this particular application on the RXM. And what we are going to do, and what I've done, is I just went on Amazon and randomly picked a Picatinny mount. This has the RMR footprint, so you can see these two shiny points here are the bosses, the studs that interact with the recess, the holes in the optic. This is going to mount here, 2 screws, and now we can mount this to a Picatinny mount. One thing I do want to note, this was just a random. I will see if I can find, I'll look up the order and I'll put in the description what brand this was. It was just a Chinese brand that I found for cheap. I did have to file down these bosses that are here. They were a little too tall. When I set this down on there, the optic actually sat up in the front. So I did file them down a little bit. One thing I noticed, and not having the equipment to check this, one thing I did notice is when this was placed on the base, I can actually see light through the bottom, through where the two halves touch there. Light is coming through there, so it's not a perfect seal. But I did notice that the bottom of the optic, it seems to be a little recessed where this bottom plate on the optic is, so it's probably not an issue, but we're going to mount it anyway. With that being said, what we're going to do here, we're going to take the Cyelee Chameleon, we're going to mount that onto this plate, this Picatinny adapter. This is going to use a T15 bit. And then what we're going to do here is set these to 15 inch pounds. Make sure we are at 15. Okay. We're at 50. So I've set my torque wrench here for my torque driver to 15. And we're going to set them at 15. Okay, both at 15. Let's recheck. Yep. 15.1 on that one. 15.2 on that one. Okay. So now this optic is now mounted to the Picatinny. So why are we doing this? What is the purpose? Well, we're going to test the durability. And you watched a recent video. This is the Citadel. This is an AK 12 gauge. Well, guess what? Picatinny mount up top. Let's let the testing begin. This is part 2. Catch us again on part 3. I appreciate you being here. We're going to continue the testing on this. If there's any questions you have, hey, down in the comments below, let me know if you have the Cyelee optic. And also, let me know what you thought of it, or any of their other optics. Let's get a little discussion going on that. But I appreciate you. Check out the other video, the first video. Subscribe over here, click this guy, and that will get you to subscribe so you don't miss our upcoming content. And over here, check out our other videos. But I appreciate you. Let's see what happens to this optic. We'll catch you on the next one. Will it survive the recoil? Stay tuned for the next one to find out.